on Wednesday because he wasn't healthy. Leonard's right knee started giving him problems again after 3 days of practices with the U.S. Olympic men's team in Las Vegas. Inflammation in Leonard's right knee forced him to miss the final 8 regular season games and the last 4 games against Dallas in the first round of the NBA playoffs. Boston Celtics guard Derek White is replacing Leonard on the roster. More than 20,000 people, including former President Barack Obama, showed up at T-Mobile Arena in Vegas to watch Team USA beat Canada Wednesday night in an exhibition game. Anthony Davis had 10 points and 11 rebounds off the bench. The team leaves today for Abu Dhabi to play exhibition games against Australia and Serbia. The Summer Olympics begins July 28th in Paris. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California. Home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for Black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Aviterus, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for Black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the Black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@KBLA1580.com. That's advertising@KBLA1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got you Black.
Try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth. Oh, wait. But I'll be alright as long as I can find the groove. Yes, I will. Yeah. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. All right. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while.
Live from historic Limerick Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and got updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's thetavissmileyshow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, distillery owner Fawn Weaver talks about the fastest growing whiskey company in U.S. history, Uncle Nearest. Her new book is Love and Whiskey, the remarkable true story of Jack Daniel, his master distiller Nearest Green, and the improbable rise of Uncle Nearest. If you've not heard the story of this black couple that owns Uncle Nearest and the connection to Jack Daniel and his black master distiller Nearest Green, you will hear that story today. It is an amazing story, as told only by Fawn Weaver in this new book, Love and Whiskey. We'll talk about that in hour two. In our third hour two conversations, up first, Never Trumper GOP consultant Irina Shaw previews the upcoming Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. I expect that Rena and I will also talk about Donald Trump's VP hopefuls. It's about that time, sooner or later, and sooner than later. he will have to nominate or announce his VP pick. We'll talk about that and a bit more with Rena Shaw, that is, on the top side of Hour 3. On the B side of Hour 3, Chicago Sun-Times architecture critic Lee Bay on the Little Chicago fire of 150 years ago this week and how it reshaped the city's neighborhoods and the relationship between Chicago's storied black and Jewish communities. But in this first hour, let's talk politics with the former chief speechwriter for President Bill Clinton, David Kusnet, who is presently senior director of the global consultancy and advocacy firm APCO. David, good to hear your voice. Good to have you on, sir. How are you today?
Great. How are you?
Man, if I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I'm doing well and delighted to have you on. Excuse me, for this hour, there's a whole... I'm sorry, yes.
If I could say one thing up front, and this is sort of the disclaimer
Sure.
that everyone gives in a setting like this. You mentioned an employer that I have, and I just want to say that whatever I say today, I'm speaking for myself and not for any employer or client or anyone else. These are just my opinions.
You know, I should probably say that every day myself. I should give myself a disclaimer that what I'm saying is not on behalf of my station or the many stations that carry me across the country. I should probably start doing that. I should probably do that every day myself. I don't. But anyway, I hope that I'm not getting too many folk in trouble here in L.A. or the stations that carry us across the country with the things that I've been saying of late. So I take your point. Enough said on that. Let me press forward. It is hard to know, David, where to start. Taking your opinion, not that of the company you work for. It's hard to know where to start because there's just so much news. This story is developing like literally by the minute every day. And before I get into a couple of things I do have in front of me that I want to get your temperature on, a couple of new polls out, some new data out this morning. Before I get into that, though, just give me your sense of what I said a moment ago of the way that the dynamics of this story, it's changing like organically, like literally every hour. 1 hour, people come out in support of Joe Biden. The next hour, somebody writes an op-ed saying he needs to stand down. The next hour, somebody else comes out in support of Joe Biden. The next hour, some poll comes out that says he ought to. I mean, how are you processing the swift, fast nature of this story changing, like literally by the hour?
It's really impossible to process it. I think it was about maybe 50 years ago, in a galaxy far away, there was a prime minister of the UK named Harold Wilson, who said that in politics, a week is like a year. I think you'd have to update that now to say that in politics, maybe an hour is like a year.
Yeah.
That just so much happens, and there's so much happening that we don't know about, and there's so much we're told that's happening that may not be happening, that it's really impossible to process it. And I think there's a small number of insiders, and a large number of the rest of us. And I think for the rest of us, what's important is not to try to vibrate with every change in the news, but to really think at first principles and what we think, not just of who should be leading this country, but where this country should be going. And, for those of us who favor the Democratic Party over the alternative, really think, what is the party about and what ought it to be about, and how ought it to do a decision like the one that it's doing now.
Yeah. This is why David Kusnet was the chief speechwriter for President Bill Clinton. He knows how to turn a phrase. I'm already holding on to that phrase, that word vibrate, that we cannot vibrate with the news cycle every 5 or 10 minutes. Don't vibrate with that, but you have to be committed to your first principles. That's why, again, he was a major speechwriter for the president. I love that frame, and I'm gonna keep that in mind as we move through this hour. We don't want to vibrate with the news as it's shifting every 5 minutes, but we want to be true to whatever our first principles are with regard to what we believe about Joe Biden, about this campaign, about this historic moment in American history. That said, I want to, when we come forward, probe David on something else he also said a moment ago, and that is this notion of what we know and what we don't know. Clearly, there's a whole lot happening behind the scenes in the White House, a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes in the Biden campaign that we know not of. David's not in those circles at this moment. He was once with President Clinton. I'm certainly not in those circles, but he was an insider, and I'm curious to get his take on what he senses, what he thinks might be gestating behind the scenes, the stuff that we don't know. These stories cannot keep coming out every 5 minutes, people demanding that Joe Biden stand down, editorials and op-eds and all the like. This stuff can't be happening like by the minute and it not take a toll on the folk on the inside of the campaign. There have to be some serious conversations going on about how to navigate this crisis. We'll get David's insight on what he expects or assumes or thinks may be happening on the inside that we don't know. And then this, has the cratering in the numbers for Joe Biden really just begun? Here's an update. The Cook Political Report yesterday, this is Cook, they know this stuff better than anybody. The Cook Political Report yesterday moved Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia into the lean Republican category from toss-up. Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, now lean Republican, and they've taken them out of the toss-up category. CNN now has Biden 9 points behind. At this point in the 2020 race, Joe Biden was nearly 11 points ahead of Donald Trump and barely won. Let me say that again. At this point 4 years ago, 2020, Biden was 11 points up on Trump and barely won. At this point in 2024, he's 9 points behind Donald Trump. And you heard me say a moment ago that Nevada, Arizona, Georgia have now moved into the lean Republican category from toss-up. That's the frame that we're in. More with David Kusnet when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994. Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Looks like Bobby needs a ride again.
Grab the keys. Let's take our auntie to the swap meet. Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, do it all in a Chevy SUV. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8% must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us and our climate justice campaign partner, LA City Council member Curran D. Price Jr., as we celebrate the grand unveiling of the South LA Greenway, Saturday, August 3rd, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Augustus Hawkins Nature Park, 5790 Compton Avenue in the city of Los Angeles. Join us for a green and healthy festival with free food, planting activities, tree adoptions, nature walking tours, Zumba, yoga, sound baths, and more. It's summer, time to get outside. We look forward to seeing you at the dedication of the South LA Greenway, Saturday, August 3rd, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Augustus Hawkins Nature Park, 5790 Compton Avenue in the city of Los Angeles. Caring about the climate, caring about the community, LA City Council member Curran D. Price Jr. and KBLA Talk 1580.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and former chief speechwriter for President Bill Clinton, David Kusnet, as we talk politics in this first hour. All right, David, I said a moment ago that following your comment, you have been an insider at the highest levels. Inside the White House working for the president, and we all know that Bill Clinton had some good days and some bad days, as every president does, some ups and downs. I was honored, as you probably know, to interview the president a number of times, many times, in fact. I consider Bill Clinton a friend, first of all. Interviewed him many times over his 8 years in the White House, and I was the one who was honored with the opportunity to be his first sit-down interview after the whole Monica Lewinsky scandal thing broke. Months went by. The president did not sit for any interviews. He did press conferences, but no one-on-ones. When he finally decided to sit for a one-on-one, I got the phone call. I was grateful for it, and it did wonders for my career to have that exclusive with the president at that point in my career many, many years ago. So I know this man well, fundamentally like him. But he had his ups and downs, and you were there when those ups and downs were happening. So every president has the same issues. There are ups and downs in any particular administration. The Biden campaign, the Biden administration right now is going through it, to be sure. What's your sense, to your point of what we don't know? That's your phrase. What's your sense of the way things are happening behind the scenes right now as this news is rolling in by the hour for the president, and most often in the moment at least, it's not good news, David?
Well, that's right. It isn't good news. My sense is this is one of those moments when what's happening in the inner circle is nowhere near as important as what's happening in the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had asked me about the Biden inner circle before the debate, I would have said that, and I think to their credit, that they run a very tight ship
mm-hmm.
in a good way. That they support each other, they don't backbite, they didn't point fingers, they didn't claim credit, and they tried to do what was best for their president and what was best for the country. And I think that they took a kind of hit that very few presidents have taken. You know, even what happened with Bill Clinton
mm-hmm.
and what happened with some of his predecessors. They took a real hit at a very bad time, and it does seem that some of the things you would have said about them before the debate you wouldn't say now. But what I really think is that what's happening outside is much more important than what's happening inside.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you mentioned a number of states that shouldn't be leaning for any Republican, much less Donald Trump, but which are. And I think it's sort of, and I'm sure that the people in the White House and the people in the DNC and the people in the Democratic House and Senate leadership are looking at this granularly. What's disturbing about Nevada is that that's a place with probably the most effective labor political operation in the country, the Culinary Union in Las Vegas. And if you look at Latino voters in Las Vegas, and they're not saying that they're going to vote, and they're not saying that they're going to vote Democratic, that's concerning.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find, just in the other states you mentioned, you could find counterparts to that. Now, I have not looked at the data in a granular way, but I'm sure that there are people who are looking. And I think that matters a lot more than who's saying what to whom in the Roosevelt Room in the White House.
Mm-hmm.
And that the people who are making the decisions, all of whom are smart and seasoned political strategists, are responding more to the outside world than to any inside dynamic. Now, I think rather than be the 1,000th person who's going to speculate, do some kind of political fan fiction about, what should happen, there should be,
mm-hmm.
There's people saying there should be an open convention, there should be a series of town hall meetings, 50 candidates should announce, and there should be some electronic mechanism to choose among them. Now, I rather than be the 1,000th person who's speculating about what should happen in the sense of either keeping the candidate we have or picking a new one,
mm-hmm.
what I want to add to the discussion is how it should happen, because
mm-hmm.
I think that's really as important as what happens. I mean, two facts that we can't escape, I think really are the most important facts are, I believe, 74 million Americans voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe 14 million Democrats voted for Joe Biden and, by extension, for Kamala Harris as vice president in the primaries. And this is a lot of people. These are the people to whom, although the people in the closed meetings in the small rooms ultimately are accountable. And wherever we go, we have to go in some direction that these folks who are the heart and soul of the Democratic coalition are going to support, especially in the situation we have now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what is being done, whatever is taking place, has to be done in a small d democratic and respectful way. And I have to admit that while I may agree with some of the things that the Hollywood people and the donors and the celebrity consultants are saying, there's just part of me that responds against the fact that they're the ones saying it. You know, and I like and respect many of them, but the fact that people who are not the rank and file of the Democratic Party and who were never elected to be the leaders of the Democratic Party, that they're the ones saying it, they're the ones being listened to, and sometimes they're being listened to, whether they intend it or not, over the voices of the people who actually walk door to door for Democratic candidates, the people who, the shop stewards who tell their coworkers that Biden has a better record than Trump does, the people who really are the heart and soul of the Democratic Party.
It is a powerful, powerful point. Nobody on this program has made that point to date, so let me probe it. I'm not naive here. I recognize there has long been a symbiotic relationship between Hollywood and Washington. Washington and Hollywood. Presidents like to come to Hollywood. Actors like to go to Washington. That relationship is long established over many, many decades, centuries, in fact, in this country. And yet, to your point, one is puzzled, and maybe even more than puzzled, bothered, as you opined a moment ago, about the outsized impact, the outsized imprint that these Hollywood big donor voices are having. The media loves. I mean, when George Clooney wrote that op-ed, they just went crazy. At the moment, I think, when that story broke, as I recall, Joe Biden was campaigning in front of the AFL-CIO. And the media just, like on a dime, turned away from that story and went straight to George Clooney because he's George Clooney. And again, there are other examples I could offer where one can see, the outsized impact and imprint that these Hollywood big donor voices have over and against the everyday people who, in fact, did vote for Joe Biden, who don't have those kind of platforms to write op-eds for the New York Times and get all that media attention. How do I read that outsized impact of this particular constituency, particularly if you consider that imprint is tainting the process against Joe Biden, if that makes sense?
No, exactly. I agree. I agree completely. And just to pick up on what you were saying, and you give the very vivid and I'm afraid accurate image of the media panning away from the AFL-CIO meeting to George Clooney. That according to an account I read of the AFL-CIO meeting, I think to their great credit, the leaders of labor are recognize and appreciate the fact that Joe Biden has been with them in a way that no other president, maybe since Franklin D. Roosevelt, has been with the labor movement, and not just the people at the top of the labor movement, but he's the first president to walk a picket line with the UAW in Michigan. They've had organizing committee members from Starbucks and other, I think Amazon and other organizing campaigns at the White House. No one's ever said or done what Joe Biden has said or done, and they're standing with him, as they should, because I think loyalty may not be the greatest human virtue, but usually if someone throws loyalty out the window, they're doing it in favor of something that's a lot worse than loyalty, not something that's better than loyalty.
Yeah.
No. And in the news stories, and in one news story that I saw today, it said that while Biden was very well received at the AFL meeting, there was some skepticism from two union leaders who happened to be, I think, two of the best union leaders in the country and two of the leaders who were closest to the rank and file members, Sarah Nelson of the flight attendants and Sean Fain of the auto workers. And I really, if you're going to personalize it, with all due respect to George Clooney and some of the other bold-faced names who have been getting a lot of attention, I'd really rather hear from Sean Fain and Sarah Nelson about whether they think that there's a path to victory for Joe Biden, because there's no question that they appreciate what he's done for working Americans. Yeah. But there's no question also that they realize that working Americans have real skin in the game, and they want to follow and work with and help to elect a leader who has a credible path to victory.
So let me ask you about messaging, because, again, in case you just tuned in, our guest in this hour is David Kusnet. He is the former chief speechwriter for President Bill Clinton. So he has been in the inner circle, been on the inside, has helped Bill Clinton, had to help President Clinton navigate the ups and downs of his presidency and how he was going to message the difficult moments that he had to navigate. So he knows something of the moment that Joe Biden is in terms of trying to get his message right up against the winds, the headwinds that he's facing now from the media, from Hollywood, and frankly beyond. What's your sense of the way that Joe Biden is responding message-wise, David Kusnet, great speechwriter that you are? What's your sense of the way he's messaging his response to this? He's come out in a number of conversations, a number of interviews. I just read he's doing one again on Monday for NBC. So he's doing these interviews. We saw the George Stephanopoulos thing. We saw the things he did on Black Radio, et cetera, et cetera. But I saw him on Morning Joe the other day, as you probably did, and he seems to be getting a little bit, I won't say unraveled, but a little bit defensive. And he has every right to be defensive, no question about it. But when he starts saying stuff like, I don't care about the big names, I don't care about the big donors, only God Almighty can get me out of this race, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just curious as to how you, as a former presidential speechwriter, are processing the way he's messaging his pushback against these headwinds.
Well, just taking the limitations of age as a given, and we should also take the advantages of age, which ought to be a sense of perspective, and experience, and knowing that whatever is happening now has happened to him before and has happened to others many times before. I think he's doing one thing right and one thing wrong.
Okay.
I think the thing that he's doing right is that the idea of resilience has always been central to his life, central to his, I hate to use the word message because it's something more authentic than message. It's central to his values and the story he tells Americans and what he finds great about the American people and what he encourages. His own, people know his own personal story, the terrible tragedy that happened to his family in 1972. And then he bounced back from that, and then the tragedy that happened to his son before 2016, and he has gone forward from that. And I guess fewer people know that when he was simultaneously, as a much younger man, seeking the Democratic presidential nomination for 1988, and also leading the hearings against Robert Bork for Supreme Court justice, he was on the verge, he had terrible headaches, and he was on the verge of having an aneurysm in the brain that would have killed him. And fortunately, he caught that, and he moved forward from that. So to the extent he stresses resilience, that's something that's central to him, and it's central to Americans who are recovering from all kinds of crises, from COVID and the shutdown of the economy and the schools, to the financial crisis of 2008, to the forever wars that took such a toll on our country and on other countries. So that's when he talks about that, however haltingly, he's saying what he should be saying.
Hold that thought. That's what David Kusnet thinks Joe Biden is doing correctly, staying on this message of resilience. Every time he says it, the audience goes crazy. He makes his point that we know as Americans that when we get knocked down, we got to get back up. So David likes his resilience message. What he doesn't like, we will hear when we come forward with David Kusnet, former speechwriter for President Bill Clinton, on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Ray Harris, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The National Hurricane Center is watching a low-pressure system located off the southeastern U.S. coast. It's currently producing some disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Stay with the Black Information Network. We'll keep you updated. The remnants of Beryl are heading to the northeast, bringing the potential of tornadoes and flash floods. Meanwhile, more than 1 million customers are still dealing with power outages in Texas. The USA men's basketball team was on the court for the first time this summer. Team USA played Team Canada in the USA Basketball Showcase in Las Vegas. It was a sluggish start, but LeBron, Steph, and Team USA prevailed. And that's the latest. I'm Ray Harris on your home for 24/7 news, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Hi, we're Comparion Insurance Agency. Never heard of us? We know. But to help it stick that our local agents are insurance experts, we're going to say local agent 3 times in the next 5 seconds. Local agent, local agent, local agent.
Find us at ComparionInsurance.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
USA Basketball Managing Director Grant Hill confirmed that Clipper star Kawhi Leonard was sent home Wednesday because he wasn't healthy. Leonard's right knee started giving him problems again after 3 days of practices with the U.S. Olympic men's team in Las Vegas. Inflammation in Leonard's right knee forced him to miss the final 8 regular season games and the last 4 games against Dallas in the first round of the NBA playoffs. Boston Celtics guard Derek White is replacing Leonard on the roster. More than 20,000 people, including former President Barack Obama, showed up at T-Mobile Arena in Vegas to watch Team USA beat Canada Wednesday night in an exhibition game. Anthony Davis had 10 points and 11 rebounds off the bench. The team leaves today for Abu Dhabi to play exhibition games against Australia and Serbia. The Summer Olympics begins July 28th in Paris. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
If you say you care about the community, you have to also care about the climate. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
Sink your teeth into juicy savings with a deal on watermelon from your local Amazon Fresh grocery store. Buy a seedless watermelon for $4.99 while supplies last. Get more summer to savor at your local Amazon Fresh grocery store. Find a store near you or shop online.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
KBLA Talk 1580 is now celebrating 3 years of amplifying our voice and uplifting our community. We deeply appreciate your support of this radio station and will always do our level best to earn your support. Here's to many more years of loving and serving our community. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
I know it's gonna happen without you.
SoCal on July 14th. Big 3. We're back. The world's greatest basketball in the summer. The Big 3. There's simply no comparison, no competition.
They not like us.
That's right, they not like us. We own the summer. with our traditional, hard-nosed brand of basketball. The Big Three, founded by Ice Cube. It's professional 303 basketball with former NBA greats and Hall of Fame coaches. Come out to the Honda Center July 14th. Hang with your homeboy Ice Cube and watch the greatest game in the summer. It's your homeboy Ice Cube. It's the Big Three, Season 7. The hottest game of the summer. I'll be in the house with your favorite Big Three players and Hall of Fame coaches. Get your tickets at big3.com/tickets. Oh, yay, yay!
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
This is Tavis Smiley in conversation with David Kusnet, who was the former chief speechwriter for President Bill Clinton. So he knows a great deal about being in the White House, being in the inner circle during the good times and the bad times, and how to message your way through these difficult moments. And so he has some sense of what President Biden and his team are trying to navigate even as we speak. So when we left you, David Kusnet, moments ago, you had said in answer to my question about how you view the way the president is messaging in this particular moment, you said there's one thing, Tavis, I think he's doing well, and one thing I think he's doing not so well. The one thing he's doing well is staying true, staying on message regarding this notion of resilience, that when we get knocked down, we get back up. So you like his message of resilience. What do you not like?
What I think where I think he's falling short, and if I could say so, maybe he could learn a lesson from Bill Clinton, is during the personal crisis where you interviewed Bill Clinton, and during the problems at the beginning of the 1992 campaign, Bill Clinton would always tell the voters, "This isn't about me. This is about you." He would put the voter at the center, particularly the voter who was having a hard time just making ends meet, putting food on the table, living from paycheck to paycheck. He would make them the center of the argument, not what was happening to him and to other politicians. And I think one thing that President Biden said that I think did great on some people during the interview with George Stephanopoulos was where he said he'd be happy with the outcome of the 2024 election, even if he lost, if he had given it his all.
That's right.
And I know what he was trying to say, but there are a lot of people in this country who are going to get terribly hurt if Donald Trump and the policies that he stands for are what governs this country starting in 2025. And even if Joe Biden gave it his all, that's not going to be a consolation for somebody who, under this 2025 project that the Heritage Foundation has, who's going to lose time and a half pay after working 40 hours a week, as they propose. And it's not going to help a woman who can't get health care. It's not going to, you can just go down the line of the things that Donald Trump did in his first term and the things that he would do in his second term, and they're not going to come out okay. Former presidents, barring a real cataclysm, tend to come out okay, but rank-and-file Americans are not going to come out okay. And he needs to make, and not just him, but the Democratic Party need to make the discussion about what's going to happen to working Americans, not what's going to happen to big shots in Washington, and not just what's going to happen in terms of some abstractions about democracy when people are struggling day to day.
No, I received that. Let me tell you what I've been noodling of late. Aside from the polls and the surveys and the studies and the Hollywood voices, Clooney and others, and the big donors. Aside from all that, here's what I've been noodling on a bit lately, David, and that is that if voters have decided that Joe Biden is too old, if the die in that regard is already cast, then there's nothing that he can do message-wise or otherwise, even reframing, as you put it, to say this is not about me, this is about you. That's a nice reframe. But the reframing, the message only gets through if people are open to hearing it. They got to be open receptacles. And if the die is already cast, that is to say, if people already think he is too old to be running for re-election, then I can't imagine anything that he could say or do. I don't care how many press conferences he has. He has one today. This program is syndicated. We air in different times in different markets. And so we're awaiting at the moment this press conference to happen. It may be happening right about now. By the time this program airs in other markets across the country, it will have already happened. So the conversation will already be in full effect later today and the next couple of days about how he did at this press conference and how he managed his way through it. So that conversation is forthcoming, and I'm just bracing myself for what that looks like. But my point is that if voters have already decided that he is too old, there's really nothing he can say or do, I don't care how great he is today or in the days to come, that can get people to focus on his remarkable records of his remarkable record of accomplishment. You and I both agree he's been a very good president. My question is, how do you get folk to focus on that when they're focused on this? Bill Clinton, speaking of your former boss, famously said, and I love it, that every election is about the future, never about the past. I take that. But you've got to run on your record. He has a record to run on. But if folk have already decided he's too old, how, no matter how well he does, can he get them to refocus on that part? Does that make sense as a question?
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think his age is a given, and within some room for improvement, the fact that he seems to look and act his age, unlike among other people, Nancy Pelosi and Dr. Fauci and Bernie Sanders and Maxine Waters, the fact that sadly Joe Biden seems to look and act his age is probably also a given. Mm-hmm. I think we can all think of situations in life where we'd rather entrust our future to an older person who has our best interests at heart.
Agreed.
Than to a slightly younger and maybe more frenetically active person who wants to do us harm. Mm-hmm. And so I think ultimately people vote on who's on your side. You know, that the president has a whole lot of power, and you'd rather have an older president, you'd rather have someone who maybe has lost a step, who's on your side, than have somebody who not only isn't on your side, but somebody who is going to entrust the country to people who really have a terrible future in mind for you. Mm. So I do think that it's possible for an older candidate to beat a younger candidate. And I guess showing how old I am, I was a speechwriter for Walter Mondale when he ran against Ronald Reagan. Mm. And Ronald Reagan, as an actor, he always knew his lines, so he never forget his lines. He was speaking the wrong lines, and he knew how to project strength on stage. But there were many occasions, including in his debates with Mondale, where he just seemed to have completely lost his train of thought.
Yeah.
And he won because, and you know, I didn't agree with the outcome, but he won because people thought that, you know, what was then a majority of the country, and you can look at the demographics, and it was the kind of majority Republicans get, not the kind of majority Democrats get. But a majority of the country, as it existed in 1984, wanted to entrust their future to someone like Ronald Reagan, not to someone like Walter Mondale. And you can look, you know, going further back in history, before our time, you know, it's only before our time as in any way following the news with Dwight Eisenhower, who had suffered a heart attack and a stroke.
No,
he got reelected, and he stayed very popular. And Franklin Roosevelt, who was dying,
that's right,
got reelected.
There's a big piece today. I'm glad you mentioned that. If you've not seen it, I recommend it. I read so much preparing for this show. I think it's the New York Times. I'm pretty sure it is. In the Times today, there's a big story I recommend you read about all the presidents and their administrations, all their handlers who've lied to us over the years about their health. And 2 or 3 of the names that David just mentioned are written about in this article. They covered stuff up for Dwight Eisenhower. They covered stuff up for FDR. They covered stuff up for Ronald Reagan. They covered stuff up for for a number of presidents, and all this is sort of detailed in this article. And the question, of course, is what are they covering up, if anything, about Joe Biden? The story broke a couple of days ago that an Alzheimer's specialist from Walter Reed has been to the White House 8 times over a period of time, made 8 visits to the White House. We don't know yet what his interaction with, or was there any action with the president, but just that story being out there that an Alzheimer's specialist has been to the White House 8 times, that story resonated and had ripple effects. Anyway, this story in the Times today goes into detail about the ways in which we've been lied to, the way presidents have covered up their health concerns, their health maladies for years, and eventually it all comes out with Ronald Reagan, who David mentioned. It eventually came out. And I guess if he lives long enough, we'll see what becomes of Joe Biden. But in this moment, he says he's not going. He's staying in the race. We'll talk more about that with the former speechwriter for Bill Clinton, David Custnet, when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Hey guys, do you want male performance in the bedroom and do you want it now? Get it in 47 seconds or less. For the first time, you can have instant male enhancement. Introducing Nox 47, the topical male enhancement that works in 47 seconds or less. Satisfaction guaranteed. Finally, after years of scientific research, our proprietary formula will allow you to perform in the bedroom like never before. Just imagine that little blue pill on steroids. No reason to settle and wait when you can get instant performance now. Forget about pills and potions that make you wait hours or up to 30 days to work. That's yesterday's news. Nox 47 is brand new. The hottest thing for men. And you don't need a prescription. Call now and get your free supply for a limited time.
To find out how to get Nox 47 for free, call now. 800-617-1621. That's 800-617-1621. Free bottles for limited time. Call 800-617-1621. That's 800-617-1621.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California and around the country to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. As part of JP Morgan Chase commitment, they are taking action to help improve financial wealth and access to banking in the Black community, helping more people open low-cost checking and savings accounts, hosting community seminars with supporting Black-led institutions by building awareness about financial investments, hiring community managers, and opening community center branches like Crenshaw, Inglewood, in downtown LA. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Get the tools to help reach your financial goals. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity.
Mayfresh Daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
There's more breaking news. There is every day these days that I'm on the air regarding this Biden brouhaha. Fascinatingly, David, you said earlier in this conversation you think the Biden team has been pretty good in terms of not backstabbing, not taking credit, not talking about their boss behind his back. Here's a post now from NBC News, and I quote, I mentioned earlier, by the way, before I read this quote, that the president has agreed to an interview on NBC on Monday, I believe. So this is a story that's just been posted by NBC News, and I quote, Several of President Joe Biden's closest allies, including 3 people who are directly involved in efforts to elect him, told NBC News they now see his chances of winning as 0, and the likelihood of him taking down fellow Democratic candidates growing. Quote, he needs to drop out, close quote, one Biden campaign official said. He will never recover from this. So much for the team keeping their mouth shut, David, when 3, according to NBC News, 3 people directly involved in the re-election campaign have told NBC News they now see his chances of winning as 0, and the likelihood of him taking down fellow Democratic candidates as growing. He needs to drop out. He will never recover from this. I don't know who NBC's talking to. I do know that these are the kinds of stories that don't aid and abet the president, David Kusnet.
Well, that's true. That's certainly true. Clearly, what the debate was a transformative event, not just for Joe Biden's political fortunes, but for the country. Trying to read the tea leaves. It's possible that those closest to him are trying to give him an exit ramp. I think that the best thing they can do for him, the best thing for the Democratic Party, and the best thing for the country is to give him an exit ramp. Mm-hmm. It does seem to me, just going back to what we were talking about at the beginning of our discussion, that of the various players who, I think some of whom may be saying things that need to be said, but are saying and doing things in a way that doesn't fully respect the rank and file of the Democratic Party and doesn't contribute to a united party supporting whatever the outcome is. I think someone who's behaved in a very, and we expect nothing less of her, but someone who's behaved in a very responsible, very strategic, very, if you can use the word, statesman-like way, has been Nancy Pelosi. Mm-hmm. That she has been very respectful to the president. She's been very respectful to Democratic voters and to the voters generally. And she has just tried to speak some truths in a gentle and diplomatic and respectful way, and to sort of open the door without pushing the president out the door.
Yeah. Let me...
And it's possible that what we're hearing now may in some way be part of it being done by people who, I don't think there's too many people in American politics who are as skillful as Nancy Pelosi, but it's being done by people who may not be quite as skillful as she is, but are well-meaning.
I'll take your point. When we come forward in our remaining moments with David Kusnet, he mentioned Walter Mondale earlier, who he was a speechwriter for before he became chief speechwriter for President Bill Clinton. It occurs to me that this week is the 40th anniversary. I had to look this up right quick. This week is the 40th anniversary of Geraldine Ferraro's pick as Walter Mondale's running mate. That was historic, Walter Mondale picking a woman to be his running mate. I think you see where I'm going with this. We'll talk about that part when we come forward in this contemporary moment on Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles is a nonprofit law firm that protects and advances the rights of the most underserved, leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone can have access to the justice system. Every year, LAFLA provides free, high-quality legal services to more than 100,000 people living in poverty across greater Los Angeles. Their unique combination of neighborhood offices, self-help centers at courthouses, and domestic violence clinics puts Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles on the front lines in vulnerable communities and at the forefront of change. LAFLA's expert team of attorneys, paralegals, and support staff works to provide direct representation, offer counsel and advice, provide referrals, and educate the community about their legal rights through workshops and seminars. With locations all over LA, you can access their services or volunteer to help no matter where you live. And if you have an urgent issue, call 213-235-0060. That's 213-235-0060. To get legal help, make a donation, or volunteer, visit LAFLA.org. LAFLA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and David Custon. I've only got 3 minutes left here. But this week is a big week historically in the realm of politics. It was 40 years ago this week that the aforementioned Walter Mondale chose Geraldine Ferraro to be his running mate. That was a big, big deal. I remember that moment well. He got a woman on the ticket. And in this moment, 40 years later, there's a whole lot of talk about one Kamala Harris replacing Joe Biden. If, in fact, he decides to stand down. What are your thoughts about the way that conversation, I'm not asking your view per se on whether you think it's a good or bad idea, but what do you think about the way the conversation is being had around Kamala Harris?
Well, first, I just want to commend you. You have really done your research, and that's a great historical antecedent for what may happen next. I think just one thing I'd add, for those who hold it against the vice president that she was a prosecutor. As it happens, Geraldine Ferraro had been a prosecutor.
Mm-hmm.
Walter Mondale had been a prosecutor. Robert F. Kennedy Sr. had been a prosecutor. John Kerry had been a prosecutor. And I could just go down a list of so many people who are progressive heroes who were prosecutors. So there was nothing wrong, and there may be something very powerful about the vice president having been a prosecutor.
Yeah. There is another, again, this breaking news is happening so fast I can't keep up with it. Another story just broke in the New York Times, a headline, some Biden advisors are discussing how to convince him to step aside. Close allies of the president are developing a case for why he should end his re-election campaign, though it is not clear that the discussions have reached him yet. These kinds of stories are going to keep happening. I'm not so sure they're really breaking news. I should stop using that phrase. I had a guest on the program the other day talking about CNN. It said to me in a somewhat humorous moment, David, have you noticed, Tavis, every time you turn on CNN, they got a chyron up that says breaking news, breaking news. He said, man, everything ain't breaking news. That's the problem with CNN. They are breaking the news. They're breaking the news because everything ain't breaking news. So I got to be mindful of that and stop saying breaking news every time something happens, but it comes across my phone and my producer's phone so quickly and so frequently as breaking news. But that kind of story doesn't surprise me, that some of his advisors are trying to figure out how to talk to him. We shall see what the coming days will bring. But clearly, it ain't over yet. We will see if Joe Biden is successful at running out the clock. There will be a time in the next few weeks where if they can't force him out, he will be the nominee. And that's the point that David made earlier about respecting the rank and file. So, again, much more to cover in this developing story, as we say. For now, I thank for his particular insights. The former speechwriter, chief speechwriter for President Bill Clinton, David Cusnett. David, good to have you on. We'll do it again, my friend. All the best to you, sir.
Great talking with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Be well, sir. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Ray Harris, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network.